Welcome, everybody, to building multidimensional characters using talents and strengths. We have here Donna Milakovic.
Milakovic. Yes,
Milakovich. Sorry.
that's okay.
One quick announcement before we get started. Remember to go visit the art show and vote for your favorite piece. Voting ends at noon, so now is a great time. Um, and we'll go ahead and let Donna take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. Um, Huge kudos to all of the producers who are helping with LTUE. It has been a really great conference. So far, welcome everybody. This is building multidimensional characters using talents and strengths. My name is Donna Milakovich, and I currently am the Senior Director of Community Outreach at Utah Valley University. I'm a certified strengths coach with Gallup Strengths, and I am a writer. I've been writing for about 16 years. I write in Regency, I've written a Celtic mythology, I've written in young adult. I'm currently, my work in progress is a young adult sci-fi romance. So excited about writing. You're not going to find my books. I am still working on being published. I am a journalist, so columns in the newspaper. If you want to Google my name, you'll find a lot of commentary and in nonfiction, which I don't really believe in. So I don't believe in nonfiction. I am super excited for the coming years, fiction and the stories. I really think our pandemic is going to allow for some great stories to emerge as we get back to normal life, and there's more and more publishing happening. People are reading a lot right now, so that escapism is a real thing. As we work on our novels and as we work on getting things, getting characters and story written, like I said, I've been doing this for 16 years. I work in a lot of communication, professional areas, and as a professional strengths coach, my interest in writing and the professional assessment came together in this really interesting way. So this is the first time I'm teaching it to a large group like this. And I'm excited to see the synergies that come out of our workshop today. Let me explain about these words that you see on the screen. So Clifton Strengths has 30 years of research behind it. It's an assessment. I do not work for Clifton Strengths. I am here as a fellow writer and as a professional communicator and somebody who builds characters. And I'm excited to kind of merge these two parts of my world. There are 34 themes we'll talk about in a minute, but my top 5 are woo, which stands for winning others over, communication, strategic, activator, and positivity. So those are the 5 words, the 5 themes that I lean into most. It's kind of the filter I see the world through. You're going to learn a lot about me if you remember these 5 words as we go through, because we'll talk about behaviors that are pretty easy to understand based on these strengths that you see in people. Okay, this is what we'll be doing today. We're going to be taking our characters and we're going to be animating them. We're going to be taking them from sketches and physical attributes and things they might do to emotions, happy, angry. How do we react to things? What's our motivation and behavior? And we're going to predict how they're going to react to the obstacles we put in their way. So is your character going to fill the gap with the boulder you give him? Is he going to push it up the hill? Is he going to make it to the top? Is your character going to build a team to get this done? Are they the kind of person to turn around and make sure everybody on the road gets there? Are they going to be able to leap your challenges in a single bound? So how do we react to the obstacles that are given? Our outline for today, just so you know, it is a 2-part workshop. So if you're here, hopefully you can stay for the 2 hours, but if not, here's how the breakdown goes. Part 1 of our day, we're going to do an introduction to fundamentals, give you some vocabulary and some background on strengths. And then we're going to talk about understanding yourself so that you can better understand the 34 themes that you can use to build characters. They are broken up into 4 domains. So when you're building a team, it works really well to take characters and assign them different strengths based on those domains. And then I will give you my top 12 contrasting themes that I think make really good conflict in a book. It is just 12 out of the 34. You can mix and match any way you want, but this should give us an example. And then on part 2, we're going to build your character sheets. We're going to introduce the tools, deconstruct some of our favorite characters, and then we're going to get to work and we're going to build a couple of characters and we'll have some show and tell at the end. So hopefully you'll be able to stick with us all the way through. We will take a few breaks in the middle. At the end of our time together today, I hope you'll know how to find resources to review the 34 talents and themes to use them as inspiration. So I know we're not going to get through everything today. What I'd like to do is point you at resources so that if you need definitions or you need, you're trying to think of a character who's really different from you, but you want to get a sense of how they would see the world, that you have these places you can go and watch a 1-minute video or get a definition or quickly remind yourself what those words might mean. Then have an example of a strengths-based character sheet. So by the end of today, you should have an example of that and be inspired to create dynamic characters who are complex beings with predictable patterns of behavior and motivation. So this is a little more than just giving them blue eyes or brown hair or characteristics or green skin or giving them a backstory. What we're talking about today is kind of assigning a personality trait. And it helps us motivate. It helps us see how your character filters information and filters the world and the lens through which they see things so that you can better understand, are they going to get angry in a situation? Are they going to get hurt in a situation based on how they would process that information or what might offend them? What might please them? What might make them excited? What adventure they want to go on? So lots of different motivations. As I said, Clifton Strengths, 30 years of research in human dynamics and neurology and behavior and thought process. Thousands and thousands and thousands of companies use Clifton Strengths. We at the university are a strength-based institution, and our division is a strength-based division, which is how I got certified 2 years ago to become a strengths coach. I do a lot of personal coaching. I do not work for Gallup. I am not selling Gallup. Every resource I give you today is totally free. So it is really just a list of vocabulary words that we can use and themes to understand how people behave. So let's do a quick introduction to Gallup Strengths, and hopefully you can get some insight into what we're talking about today, just a little foundation. This video that's going to play next is centered for people who have taken the assessment. So though you haven't taken the assessment, you are going to take these strengths. You're going to write 5 of them down and you're going to pretend like your character did take the assessment. And so you're going to pretend like your character is doing all of these things. Ooh. We'll come back to that.
Is zillion a real number? No, zillion's not a real number. But it is a word you might be tempted to use if you tried to list all the talents found among humankind. Creating a list of every talent is an impossible task, but if you step back, you'll see that talents often have something in common, a theme that connects them. Some talents, like a natural tendency to share thoughts, to create engaging stories, and to find the perfect word, relate directly to communication. That's what they have in common, their theme. So to begin thinking and talking about them, we can call them communication talents. The Clifton Strengths Finder measures the presence of talent in 34 general areas or themes. Your Clifton Strengths Finder report includes a ranked listing of the 5 themes that hold your most dominant talents, your signature themes. Similar to your fingerprint, the sequence of your themes is unique to you. The odds that someone has the same 5 signature themes in the same order as you are 1 in 33 million. You heard right, 1 in 33 million. Your report is a beginning, not an end. Take this opportunity to explore your talents, harness their power, and bring them to life every day. Try this. First, name it. To begin making your signature themes your own, grab a highlighter. Carefully consider each theme description in your report. Highlight words and phrases that specifically resonate with you. You'll know you're highlighting the right things when you hear yourself say, "That's me."
You might do that for your character. Write down their themes and then write a couple of phrases that you think make sense for them. Hopefully this will play. There.
Next, claim it. Post your signature themes and the words or phrases you have highlighted in a place where you'll see them every day. Share your report with people close to you. Ask for their reaction. Then, aim it. Pick one of your signature themes and think about it for a day. Ask yourself, how can I use this theme today? Where can this theme make a positive difference in my life today? Begin to flex this theme by using the action items provided in your report to hone your talents into strengths. Like muscles, strengths can wither if they're not exercised regularly. What will be your daily practice to stay in tip top shape? Once you are deliberately using this theme every day, focus on another signature theme. As you start to flex each of your signature themes, you'll find ways to build on your greatest areas of potential. Our talents are an instinctive and intuitive source of wisdom and power. When we begin to intentionally tap into this power, we gain the ability to transform every moment, every interaction, and every day. You have dynamic talents just waiting to be unlocked and developed. Use your Clifton StrengthsFinder report to name, claim, and aim your signature themes.
Awesome. So what we learned from that is that we are very unique beings, and your characters, whether they are human, humanoid, if they process the way we process information in any way, they will be very unique as well. Um, I want to give you a quick heads up. We will be using the chat in the participant, the Lewis room chat room a lot during this class because we can't interact verbally. So feel free to say hello in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to get over there, you'll want to open the chat in at least a side bubble because that's where you'll be answering some of my questions as I ask them throughout the workshop. Okay. So we're unique. 1 in 33 million people have the top 5 strengths in the exact same order that you would have them. Again, you don't have to do this. You don't have to take it. But just understand that it's about how we filter information. And as we talk about these vocabulary words, feel free to ask questions in the chat as well. We're going to do a little exercise. Also, what I really like about this too is if you don't use your strengths, then they lose influence on you. You're going to do that with your characters. Pull some of their strengths up to the top, challenge them in certain obstacles, use others as resolution, or if you have a conflict, let's say you have a romance and you have 2 characters and somebody's really struggling with being vulnerable or opening up or building a relationship with someone, they might pull on a different strength to help them overcome that struggle. So we are complex creatures and we have multiple talents and themes, as they said. Okay, I'm going to go backward a little bit because I want us to do this exercise. As context for how your characters might feel and why it's good to know what your strengths are, I want you to find a piece of paper and a pen. I can't see you. I hope you're getting one. It doesn't have to be a pen. Any writing utensil you would like and a piece of paper. If you don't have a writing utensil or a piece of paper, I want you to put your writing utensil in your non-dominant hand. For me, that's my left. Other people might be left-handed, but for me, it's my left hand. So you put your writing utensil in your left hand, and or if you don't have a writing utensil, you can type one-handed with your non-dominant hand. So if I were not using a pencil or a piece of paper, I would type with one hand this phrase 3 times in the next 60 seconds. So I'll tell you when to go. The phrase is, I love creating new characters. We're going to write it 3 times with our non-dominant hand. So for me, that's the left hand. And I'm going to write it 3 times in the next 60 seconds. So, okay. Are you ready? 60 seconds. Ready, set, go. Again, 3 times. I'm going to get out of the shot, but my time. It might feel a little clunky. Some of you might notice that you're starting to have to think really hard about which way your E's go and your S's. When you're done, you have 10 seconds left. When you're done, you can put in the chat that you have finished and tell me what it felt like. 3, 2, 1, done. Did you get it done? Did you write 3 times with your left hand or your non-dominant hand, whichever one it is? Or did you type one-handed these sentences 3 times? What did it feel like? Was it awkward? Was it difficult? Did you have to think extra hard? Did it take longer than you think it should? Okay, now we're going to, some of you are still writing instead of putting your answers in the chat. Did we or did we not finish this exercise? So next, we're gonna move your writing utensil to your dominant hand, or you can type with both hands. Move it to your dominant hand, and we'll do the exercise again. You get 30 seconds this time. So 30 seconds to write with your dominant hand. Ready, go. I love creating new characters. You get half the time. You probably won't need it all. Some people might. Maybe I'm not refreshing.
I think there is actually a lag.
Okay. Oops. I let you have 9 seconds extra. Okay. If you've finished writing with your dominant hand, tell me what you thought of that. How did it go? Done. Everybody's done. Definitely felt clumsy, right? Super messy. Yeah, a lot of people didn't make it 3 times on the run. How did the dominant hand go? What we're trying to see here is, yes, you can improve. So when Lisa, I see that. Every line looks a little bit better than last line. When you're doing something with your non-dominant hand, it is awkward. It takes a minute. You have to think harder. You have to clutch harder. My E's end up being backwards. I end up scrawling in ways that I haven't since kindergarten. But I can get better at it if I practice it. I've done this 3 or 4 times now in the month of January as I've been teaching, and I'm getting better at it. I still can barely make it in the 60 seconds. I'm not even sure I always make it with my non-dominant. With my dominant hand, the flow is natural. It comes easier. I can think more clearly. I can actually do it without thinking about it at all. Sometimes I can just write these phrases without even looking at the paper, right? Excellent. I see all of your chats coming in. There's a little bit of a lag, but that's great. So now that you've done it, what we're trying to do is help our characters understand when they're in their dominant hand, when they are born for a situation, when it makes sense, it's the way they process the world, and it works really well. So somebody who has really strong communication skills, being put in a situation where they have to communicate really important information is like writing with your dominant hand. It just comes, they think quickly, the words get filtered, and everything kind of spills out the way you want it to. However, somebody with communication as a high talent who's sent to a monastery and can't talk, or who has to learn a brand new language and can't use their words the way that they're used to, it's like writing with your non-dominant hand. And it's harder if you pride yourself on communication and you always can come up with the right words. Then you're in another language, it feels more awkward, and it's frustrating in ways that that are hard to explain because you're used to your brain just processing things, and now you want to learn a ton of vocabulary. Thank you for sharing. I love the photo. Yes. It's much faster and easier when we do that. So as we look at our characters, let's keep that in mind. When are we pushing them to their awkward exercises? When are we pushing them out of their comfort zone and making them do something? And then if you have to do that, remember, they're not going to be great at it at first. Remember what it feels like to write with your non-dominant hand. You're going to feel a little awkward. You're going to have to overthink things a little bit in order to get it done, but you're going to feel more successful as you do it. The thing about writing with your left hand, when they used to force people to write with their left hand, it never really became supernatural. Not supernatural like alien, or not supernatural like paranormal supernatural. It never became a really natural flow for a lot of people. A lot of people just still did a lot of things with their left hand or right or their dominant hand, but they only wrote with the hand they were commanded to write with. So when are we putting our characters in that situation? Okay, we're going to learn a little bit about you. And I'm not sure if the lag is in the audio or if it's in the chat. So hopefully you're picking up on all of this. I want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand at your house if you are someone who almost always talks to people in elevators, airplanes, grocery stores, or wherever you go. Do you recognize this guy from Ant-Man? He is a talker. Are you a talker? Awesome. Green Dragon, I love your strengths. Putting him in there, that's great. We're going to talk about several of these actually today. So, okay. If you're this person, there are a couple of different themes that these are people talents that might cause you to be the kind of person who talks in elevators and subway stations and at the grocery store to the person in front of you. You could just be nice, but not everybody feels that need or that comfort level of just talking to anybody. Woo, however, is my number one. Woo does feel this way. The genius of the woo talent is in your ability to quickly connect with people and become a catalyst to helping them connect with one another. I told you my job is in community outreach, building networks, professional networks, writing networks, friend networks. That just comes naturally to me. I hope to connect other people. And I really had an epiphany when I went to introduce one of my writing group we were at Worldcon years and years ago, and he really wanted to meet Moshe from Tor, the editor from Tor, and we were at the tour party. I don't know how we got there, but we were at the tour party, standing outside of the hotel room, waiting to go, wanting to go in. And he looked at me and I was like, we just go in and meet him. And he looked at me and he's like, I'm not like you. I don't just go in and dive into a crowd of people and start talking to people and connecting them. And I was like, well, good, you have me. So we'll just go in. And we walked in, I introduced him. He was also an editor, regional editor. Introduced him to his hero, just said hello and introduced who he was. And they hit it off and had like a 10-minute conversation. And we left and he's like, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you just walk in, but that's my woo, the winning others over. It's an influencing talent. And I don't know how people don't do it because it just comes to me. That's how I work. The other one might be, though, if everybody who talks to people is not a woo. The other one might be something like self-assurance, which is a theme that allows you to trust your own instincts and have a deep understanding that you can do things. And that might enable you to forge ahead confidently in risky paths. What other people might see as strangers, you see as people that you're going to talk to because you have you're high in self-assurance. So there are a couple of different things that might create that behavior in you. Okay, next behavior. This is about you. Hands up if you almost always have a color-coded or otherwise organized closet. When I teach this professionally, I don't put Superman in my closet, but I am not one to have an organized closet. So all of you who do, congratulations. I envy that. Okay. The video is laggy. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Having a color-coded closet, there are a couple of different things that might create that kind of discipline for your life if you need that organization skill, or you need that organization in order to feel comfortable. Discipline is one of them. They are very detail oriented. They are organized and efficient, and they're very well structured their life. They like order. The other theme that might do this is input. Now, input doesn't mean what you think it means. We're going to talk about that later, but input is a theme that allows you to actively create resources, and your curiosity leads you to become a storehouse of useful objects. When we think of input, high in input, and I know somebody, I think it was Green Dragon, you have input, they tend to be collectors of things. Positivity can make you a talker. Thank you, Green Dragon. Yes, positivity. I have both. Woo, communication, positivity, all three in my top 5. So I'm a big talker. Input, back to input. Input is the archivist, the librarian, the collector. And I have input in my top 10. And I kept telling people, I just don't get it. I'm not an archiver. I don't hold on to stuff. I don't collect. My husband is a collector of things. I'm not a collector of things. And when I was training and certifying, I realized I am a collector of relationships. I collect people and relationships, and that's where my resourcefulness comes from. I always have a guy that can do something, or I always know a person who can do something. I got a girl who can do this for you. I got a guy who can do this for you. You should call this company. So I collect relationships. I organize them in different ways depending on the part of my life that they are in. So those collectors also, because you're collecting a lot of things, you have to be organized. So input might also create that behavior. Hands up if you almost always write down a list of things to do and stick to it even on the weekend. Come on, admit it. You're an achiever. You love your to-do list. There's nothing quite as satisfying as marking things off your to-do list. Nice. Okay. Yes, achievers love their to-do list. People high in achiever want nothing more than to mark that off their list, get it off their list, get it done, and get it off the list. The other theme is kind of different from achiever. One other theme that might create this is responsibility. Responsibility is diligent, conscientious, and would make a to-do list in order to ensure that they can get everything done that they've committed to. So they're the ones that would work through the weekend to get their to-do list done. They will have one even on the weekend. They have to have a list of things that they've promised to do because they want to really get it done. Okay, excellent. Hands up. I love the comments in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that you collect things and you love your to-do lists. Okay, it's one of my favorites. Hands up if you almost always need to pick someone to race while you're driving. If you think of yourself as Flash or Superman, Superman doesn't always need to race, but Flash definitely does, right? Okay, what are some themes that would do this? Competition talents, the talents that are themed under competition. The genius of competition, it lies in the ability to motivate, these are motivational talents, yourself and others to higher levels of performance. So without competition, we don't really strive the same way we do when we have humans that are high in competition. But competition isn't the only reason you might race people or find that you need to be in front. There are other talents. One of them is arrangers. So the theme of arranger, the genius there is that it lies in your ability to orchestrate people and resources for maximum effectiveness. So I'm not high in competition, but I am high in arranger. And if for some reason the cars in front of me are not in the best and most effective, speed, or they're not in the best and most effective configuration for me to get where I'm going, I will arrange myself in front of them, which may include racing. So sometimes we use different reasons or motivations for the same behavior. I might race in front of somebody, but it's not a constant with me. It's not simply to get ahead. Okay. Hands up if you almost always tend to ask too many questions. Your curiosity makes you a question asker. Awesome. Okay, here are some things that might make you ask a lot of questions. Analytical themes. The genius of an analytical theme lies in the solid foundation that you lay for moving forward. Your questions drive you to uncover the essential facts needed for excellence in any endeavor. So you might be asking questions so that you know you can analyze the situation and see the best actions to take, or what the next steps are. Another different approach is ideation. The curiosity that goes around ideation when ideas are just sparking in your head. People high with ideation are fascinated by ideas, and they're able to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. So if you're in a situation and somebody presents a problem and you are high in ideation, your brain might be going and you might be asking clarifying question after clarifying question to help sift through your ideas and to help put them forward. So lots of different reasons for asking questions. Okay, hands up if you almost always push the elevator button to remind the elevator that you are still there and it needs to come. Nathan, I like your comment about always winning the race. Okay, who always needs to press the elevator button, and why would we do that? A lot of people say the elevator's not coming any faster, but for Activator, it doesn't matter if the elevator comes faster or not. You feel like you're doing something to make it happen. So Activator, I am high in Activator as well. And the genius of the Activator talent is in its natural ability to initiate transformation of ideas, actions, and programs. You have to be starting a new challenge all the time. Somebody high in Activator needs to be doing something. And we'll talk about offending and honoring your strengths a little later, but it is really frustrating for people who are high in Activator to have a plan and not be able to start executing. If we're waiting for the analyticals to understand the situation, it takes a lot of patience. Maximizer, a different getting moving talent. The maximizer is selective and strengths oriented and sorting things out. A maximizer wants to improve the situation, improve on what's happening. So if the elevator's taking too long, a maximizer might just be pushing the button to improve the chances that the elevator will come. So different motivations for different things. Yes. Martha is input and learner, and she's asking all the questions. It's true. So hopefully that gives you a little insight into what these different vocabulary, these different themes, as we look at kind of clumping people's talents into these vocabulary words, what might motivate those behaviors in you so that you can look at what might motivate your characters, right? So we're going to take understanding ourselves, kind of putting ourselves in these situations, and we'll translate in a little while to what happens if I put somebody in this situation who's like me, and what if they're not like me? Okay. The thing to remember about talent is that we are going to define it a little differently than maybe you have in the past. A talent is a naturally reoccurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. It is our natural thoughts. It's our natural feelings. It is not learning to play the piano. Or, I mean, it is. There are talented people. There are people naturally and skillfully talented in arts and music and sports and all of these things we think of as kind of performance talents or exhibitor talents that we see easily in other people. When we talk about talent, we talk about that raw, natural, reoccurring pattern of thought or feeling. Everybody has it. Everybody filters the world in certain ways and has a lens through which they see the world. And some of these things might be unexpected in the way of talents, but they are natural thought processes. An effortless or instinctively starting conversations is a talent. It's raw. When you start to shape it, it becomes a strength. When you start to use it and aim it, like they said in the video, it becomes a strength. Thinking in an orderly or timely manner, being able to easily influence other people, We call it charisma, we call it charm, we call it all of these things. It is an influencing talent, and it is a talent not everyone has. The difficulty with your own talents is that you feel like everyone should have them, that everyone processes the world because it comes so naturally to you. We start to assume that everybody can do it that easily. And as you grow and get to know people, you start to see that maybe you're a little different and you see the world a little differently than others, and you start to collect some of those other talents. A lot of times in our closest relationships, we have people with talents that are in the gaps that we don't have. So you might have a very disciplined person who gets in a relationship with somebody who's a little more adaptable. And so the disciplined person grows because the adaptable person pushes on that and says, you don't have to live in a routine all the time. And the adaptable person grows because they start to organize their chaos a little bit. And so we create these pairs in relationships, these complementary talents and even conflicting talents that help us become better rounded and fill in the gaps. Okay. Excellent. Consistently having a positive outlook on life. I think Green Dragon, we both have positivity. Consistently having a positive outlook on life is a talent. It's also something I can't help. It is a filter by which I see the world. Does not mean that I am always happy. We'll talk about that in a bit. So let's take our examples here of Captain America and Red Skull. Both given very similar serums. The serum that they were given was supposed to do the same thing for each one: enhance their natural abilities and make them super soldiers. That was the goal. They did tweak the the scientists tweaked the combination and the formula, but really the purpose was the same. Take your natural thought patterns and feelings and behaviors and enhance them and give you more ability to do them. Two very different results. Talents do not have value. They do not have they don't have morality. They are just thought patterns of the way we think and act. Whether we use those talents for good or evil, or how we judge good and evil. If you are a follower of Red Skull, if you are in Hydra, then he was great, right? If you are an American soldier, then Captain America is your hero. So we're not talking about how do we value a talent. They very similar serum, very similar enhancements, very different results. So one became far more aggressive and dominating, and the other became far more altruistic. But they both started with those characteristics, right? They were natural pieces of their character. Okay. It is time to look at some of these words. There are 34 of them. We'll do about 20 to 24 today. So we won't get through all of them. The point of today is not to teach you all about Gallup strengths. The point of today is build cool characters and give you a framework by which you can go back over and over again to these resources and build characters whenever your next project comes up, or even in the current project you're working on. Okay, it is time to breathe. We get a thing, and if you've been on all of the presentations in the last couple of days, you've probably noticed every once in a while you're like, that is because there's a thing called Zoom apnea. You can look it up. Visual screens and being on video makes us breathe more shallowly. We get kind of in this one space between us and the screen. So I'm going to challenge you during this to sit up and sit back. And maybe I'm the only one that's looking at my screen that intensely, but sit back, stretch out, and take a deep breath. We're going to breathe at least 3, but I like to breathe in for 4 count and breathe out for 4 count. You're going to need the oxygen in your brain for this next section. So take a minute and breathe. I'm only giving you a minute. And I'm getting a drink. Okay. Awesome. Here we are. All 34 of the theme words that we're talking about in this system are broken into 4 domains. The domains are executing, influencing. Oh, okay. Carrie, the difference between Gallup and Clifton. Dr. Clifton, John Clifton, was the one who created the system and started. He's the one that wrote the book, Strength Finders, which is in the resource page at the end of the PowerPoint. Clifton strengths are attributed to Dr. Clifton. He's the one that started it. Gallup is a research company that has taken that research worldwide. So Gallup is the Gallup that you think of when you do Gallup polls or other business polls. And so it's interchangeable. Gallup uses Clifton strengths. Sometimes I call it Gallup strengths. Sometimes I call it Clifton, but they are the same source. If you're looking for them, for the resources, you're probably going to go to Gallup. You can see the Gallup on my slides. That's where I got some of the root slides for this. Okay. Executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. There are themes under each of these. Let's go through executing. These themes of being being high an achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative, discipline, focus. I think you can see why that would be executing. Responsibility and restorative, all very executing. The reason belief is under an executing theme is because it is not about having a certain kind of belief, but it's being high in conviction and passion for something. Generally, it drives your behavior. It drives you to get something done, to change the world, to do something. And so it is an executing talent because it drives people to work for what they're passionate about. Influencing talents are about having, they're different than relationship building. Influence talents are about really how you affect the people around you, whether they are part of a relationship or not. So walking into a room of people you don't know, you might have strong relationship building talents, but you could also just have really strong influencing talents that might make all of them your friends within 5 minutes. Activator is an influencing talent. Activators get people moving. They create behavior around movement and they can bring the whole team forward. So if you had an activator and let's say your Dungeons and Dragons, that was a bad word to pick today because apparently I can't say it. Your Dungeons and Dragons cohort, team, group is sitting around in a tavern trying to decide if they're going to go down and fight the dragon in the cavern or if they're going to go somewhere else and rescue the princess in the tower. If you have an activator on that team sitting there talking about and trying to come to consensus, it's going to drive them crazy. So you might have a rogue who stands up and says, "We're going to the castle," and moves forward, right? Making that decision. There's nothing quite as frustrating for an activator as the conversation, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" Your activator is going to answer that within 3 "I don't knows." Command, communication. I think you can see why command would be an influencing talent. Competition is an influencing talent as well. Maximizer, self-assurance, significance, and woo. We're going to talk about significance a little bit later, but that is a recognition talent and it influences people. Okay, relationship building. So if you had somebody who was an achiever and somebody who is an activator on a team, 2 different people, you're going to get things done and you're going to get started on them quickly. So they're strong points to have. Relationship builder, adaptability, connectedness, developer, empathy, includer, individualization, positivity, and relator. So these are about how we relate to the people closest to us. Adaptability is about living in the now. It's about creating and helping people see their way through chaos. Connectedness is a relationship building, but it's about seeing the full picture. Connectedness is about kind of Douglas Adams. There are no accidents. Everything is connected. Everything has a meaning. Everything, you can see the big picture. You don't get stuck in the trees. You can see the entire forest, and you might be able to see the entire globe. So how things are connected. Developer is about developing other people. And then positivity is a relationship building one as well. So we've talked about it a couple of times. It helps you forge and retain relationships when you can see the best in people, forgive quickly, move forward, find the silver lining. Those help us strengthen relationships. Strategic thinking, our last domain, we call them domains. Our last domain is strategic thinking. Analytical, context, futuristic, ideation, input, intellection, learner, and strategic. I think you'll understand why those are the way they are. Analytical context is about getting the history, ideation, input, intellection, all very cerebral, very kind of living in your head, always soaking up information, the way we see the world, seeing vision ahead of us. The futuristic is about living in the next step and living in the future, visualizing what's happening. I would be very surprised if people like Elon Musk and Thomas Edison were not high in futuristic. They were very able to see what the possibilities of things. Okay, questions so far? Okay. Yes, woo stands for winning others over. Okay. Now, all of these words that we just talked about over here are not the same. They don't mean in this context what they mean in the dictionary, right? Keep using that word. I don't think it means what I think it means. So woo, for instance, doesn't mean what you think it means. Here's a few of them that we probably put some connotation around as a culture, especially throughout the United States. And yes, I'm going to stop and answer Brenlower's question. You actually have all 34 talents. So you have talents from all of the different themes. In your top 5, which is what we focus on a lot for people, or their top 10, somebody may have all their talents in one domain, but I have talents in all 5 domains. So in my top 10, I have talents in all 5 domains. Some people can be heavily one domain or another. So when you're putting a team together, you might have somebody who is really your analytical learner input person who also has woo. So they like to win others over, and they may use random facts to do it. So they are your trivia guru, or your chatty scientist, or somebody like that. So you can and should have talents in as many domains as you think appropriate for your character. You personally probably have talents in multiple domains. They are not strictly one domain or another. Okay. These are first impressions. Our first impressions of the word command can be a little negative. Somebody with command might be hard to deal with. Somebody with command might be pushy or bossy. We put these words around it, right? But there are definitely situations in which command is essential, in which you would not want anybody without high command in charge, although I just broke one of the rules of strengths, and that is that everybody with any strength can do the task. It's just how they approach the task. So somebody high in command might naturally cut through and create clarity. We have no value for this. So command is not a good thing or a bad thing. Again, think about it. It's how you use your command. It's how you use context. Context is about history. So it's similar to the word if you looked it up in the Webster Dictionary, but it's really broader in the sense that if I'm high in context and you try to have me make a decision, I'm really going to want to know where we came from. Why are we on this task? Why are we doing this? Where did we come from? I need the history. I need to not repeat the mistakes of the past in order to move forward. I can't just jump in like an activator and take the next step and move forward with you. I'm going to need to know why we're doing it. People with context often need a lot of prep before a meeting, or a lot of prep before So these would be the people that don't necessarily want to read your chapter out of context. They want to read it, the whole thing together, so that they can get a sense of whether you're staying on track with your character or not. Input, we talked about. Belief, we talked a little bit about. Intellection isn't really a word, I don't think. I mean, you can look it up, but intellection has to do with those deep thinkings. It's living in your intellect. It's living in your brain a lot. People high in intellection need quiet time. If you throw them into chaos over and over again, they might shut down completely. They need time to deeply think through. Think of them as the philosopher, maybe somebody who's just okay being quiet and thinking through the decision, just thinking about why butterflies' wings flap. Or my son is high in intellection and he has so many random facts in his head because he thinks deeply about things and he remembers them really well. Empathy. Empathy is similar to what we would think like an empath or empathy. But it is a strong tie to emotion. People high in empathy tend to sense a room and the change in the mood. They tend to be really sensitive to emotion, but they also need that outlet. They need to express their emotions. They may not all do it verbally. Like if you combine empathy and communication, you're going to get somebody who talks about their feelings a lot because that's how they process, and they have to have an outlet for those feelings. People high in empathy tend to store a lot of emotion. I've actually seen prison guards and others who are high in empathy who are very good at compartmentalizing them. So this emotion belongs to the workplace, this emotion belongs to home, and they really start to sort their emotions and compartmentalize them. Even though they feel deeply, it's an intellectual understanding and sensitivity to emotion. It's not the same thing as kind of sitting by your friend who's going through a hard thing. It's just a way that we filter the world, those who are high in empathy. I work with a high empathy person. It's very interesting. They sometimes know things about you don't want them to know because they just get a sense of your mood really easily. And they'll say something like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And you're like, "I'm sure." "No, I'm not sure." Why do you ask that? Because they do. They sense it. Okay, how are we doing? Everybody doing okay? We have hit our first 50 minutes, so we are moving into part 2. Okay. We're going to forge ahead, and there will be some time in a few minutes to take a break if you want, but let's forge ahead. The disclaimer that I'm going to give you is that themes are not labels. People are complex. In real life, we don't, because I'm about to take you through labeling a bunch of your characters. In real life, it may not work well for you to look at your significant other or your partner or your sibling or your parent or your friend and think, "Oh, you're totally command. Oh, you're totally achiever." Every person has all 34 of the themes. We can pull on them in different situations. We generally tend to use 5 or 10 of them over and over again, and that's how we see the world. But still, even with 5, you can't label somebody just because you know their strength. I've seen a lot of conversation in the chat about, hey, somebody's strong in woo. Somebody's strong in input, somebody's strong in learner. What I don't want you to do is label people in real life. We're going to use these very much as labels for our characters. Characters are fictional. You get to create them. And now we're going to enter our imaginations, and we're going to hopefully make them a little more complex, but we're also going to exaggerate their label and make it very clear that that's what's driving their behavior. So don't go home and look at your spouse or your significant other or your child and say, I know exactly who you are now. Because people are complicated and they have a lot of different reasons for their behavior. But it will help us predict. I know for a fact that if I throw a lot of information at my son without a lot of time to think about it, he's a pretty quick thinker, but he is going to go back and he's going to find some quiet space and he's going to think deeply about it. And even if we have a great conversation about it, he's going to come back and talk to me later, having thought about it again. He needs that quiet time, for better or worse. Okay, it's time for the 12 themes. Contrasting themes. I know some people are struggling with the microphone or the sound. I hope that works well for some of you. Okay. People are asking for a break. I am going to continue. If you need to take a minute, go get a drink, turn off your mic for a second, or come back in a minute. This is being recorded, so you can always come back and catch up on what you're missing. And we are going to have some space in a few minutes, but if you need a break, go ahead and take it as needed, and we'll work through this next section. Okay. These are contrasting. I'm going to take two of these themes, put them together, and contrast them in ways that I think would make interesting characters or interesting conflict. So these are my top choices. You could create as many contrasting themes as you want by looking at kind of how you would think people high in these characteristics would relate to each other. So we take woo because it's my number one and I understand it. They're charming and interactive and influential, outgoing, engaging, and initiating of things. And then you take your relator, who is really has the ability to form solid, mutually rewarding relationships. If you take a relator and a woo, your woo is going to love meeting new people, and your relator is going to need that one-on-one time with friends. So one of the things you find with relator and woo is that your relator may look at your woo and think, oh, social butterfly, right? Like, sure, she has a million relationships, but does she really have, a best friend? A relator will tend to have one or two best friends, very close relationships, deep relationships. They're going to want to have one-on-ones with you. They're going to want to talk to you as an individual more than being just kind of the life of the party. Not that a relator can't be. A relator definitely can be the life of the party. But when they build relationships, they tend to choose to do it more one-on-one. Also, this kind of goes along, and I don't have them in here, but woo and includer is somebody that's going to always be hosting the party. Somebody who's an includer always wants as many people to participate as possible. And that sometimes conflicts with relator. If my best friend is a relator and asks me to go to lunch and I'm an includer and I invite 3 other people, the relator, like my friend, really wanted to have lunch with me so we could sit and talk. And I really don't want to leave out the other 2 people. So we show up and it's a little awkward for the relator because that wasn't their intent. But if we exclude people and they say, let's just go us, then the includer is like, but what about these other people? Like, the more the merrier. Haven't you ever heard the more the merrier? If it sounds like I've had this situation, it's because my best friend is a relator and I've had this situation. And includer and individualization are very interesting together too, because individualization is about treating people as individuals. And they're interesting contrasts. Because a relator with individualization is going to want to really get to know how to help a person and one-on-one. And woo with includer is always going to be about group work. Let's work together on a group. It's always better when we get more information. So interesting contrasts. I spent a little extra time on that first one, hoping that those who needed a break could take it. The relator woo, Regina, as you ask, is the relator woo dynamic similar to introvert extrovert? The answer to that is sort of. Sort of. You can actually have a woo who's an introvert. Somebody who isn't, depending on what their other top 5 strengths are, whatever whatever other things kind of feed into it. So if I'm a woo with intellection, I may choose to influence in other ways than being in a big crowd, right? Because I don't have that thinking space or the quiet space. But it is very similar. Generally, if we were going to label, relators tend to be more one-on-one introvert, or like introvert extrovert is about where you get your energy. A woo relator is really about how you build relationships. So you can have somebody who's a woo, but an introvert who builds really broad relationships, but nobody really knows you deeply because you choose to not show that side of yourself. Okay, I hope that helps. Harmony. Yes, Regina, that is like going to a party and having conversations and then going home and thinking about everything you said. Yes, that is very much intellection and woo. Great insight there. You can see how that would build a fun, character in a romance, for instance. Harmony and command. Harmony, your practicality and preference for emotional efficiency reduces friction. So harmony is about consensus. They create consensus. And it's not harmony in that we have peace. It is harmony in that we don't move forward until we have consensus. So when there is not consensus, it is difficult for people high in harmony. And it's really not necessarily about getting to the best answer. It's getting to the popular answer that everybody can live with. Command creates clarity. Command is decisive and driven and persuasive and challenging. And if you get somebody with harmony in a leadership position who's also up against somebody in command in a leadership position, one is going to create consensus and one is going to create clarity. And there are pros and cons to both of those. But your command is not going to wait for consensus. And there are definitely situations where that is a benefit. But these are contrasting, not opposite, contrasting themes. And you can see how if you had two leaders, one creating consensus and one who's charging in and leading a group, that you might run into some interesting conflict in your story. Discipline thrives on routine, and adaptability thrives on chaos or variety. So somebody high in discipline who's working with somebody high in adaptability, you have that routine versus chaos, that variety versus organization. And when you have them both in your top 5, you get some very interesting results because you lean into them in different parts of your life usually, and one becomes a more dominant theme in different parts of your life. So you may have a very chaotic job and a very organized home, or vice versa. You may have a very chaotic home and a very organized job if you are high in both of them. They're contrasting, and they would create some interesting conflict. We're going to use these actually a little bit later. Activator and deliberative. Okay. Activator wants to do it until you get it right. The activator is an active. You want to do it until you get it right. Deliberative is somebody who's careful and guarded, sensible, thoughtful. They're going to watch, they're going to observe, they're going to figure out how to do it, and then they're going to do it. So they want to get it right, and then they want to act. So here's the scenario. Military sci-fi, you have a high-ranking officer in a training program, and you have a trainee. Trainee is deliberative, high-ranking officer is activator. So it is about get in and run the obstacle course, or get in and go through the gauntlet, right? We're throwing you in a room where you have to do it. Deliberative might hesitate and think through the obstacles and then act, right? Which might get them shot the first few times, or might get them, losing the simulation, or tripping on whatever traps are put in, right? They would prefer to not act before they understand what's happening. That, as you can see, would cause a lot of frustration with somebody who's an activator who's like, you will learn by doing, just get in and do. You will learn by doing. Other way around, what if your leader is deliberative and your trainee is activator? They're always going to push to be doing something. They're going to want to get in the simulator early. They're going to want to sneak around and get the obstacle course and run it at night, right? You can see the conflict that might happen about these two contrasting themes in positions of power or areas where they have to get something done together. Okay. Let's move on to competition and significance. It looks like my chat is lagging a little bit. Okay. Hopefully you're doing okay. Hopefully you remember to take a break. Okay. Competition and significance. Competition is scorekeeping, comparing, winning is important, but really watching others perform makes me better because I want to do better than them. So when I'm at a competition, for instance, my son is a ballroom dancer, right? If he were high in competition, he's not. But if he were high in competition, he would be watching all the other dancers around him and seeing who's winning and keeping track of what happens so that he can be better than the rest. However, somebody with, and again, these are not opposites, somebody high in significance, you could have competition and significance in your top 5. Somebody high in significance learns by having other people watch them. They tend to be the person who performs better with an audience. They do better when there's an audience than when they're practicing by themselves or with a partner. So they're the ones who are going to prepare for the audience. They're going to shine and learn from when other people are watching them. And they're going to compare their performance to themselves a lot of time. And they're going to get feedback from people that watch them. And they're going to get energy from being recognized as doing a good job or having people show up. So I like to think of significance. It doesn't have connotations in this context of being good or bad. Sometimes we like to think of people as showing off or being, being a showboat. Like if you're doing the right thing, doesn't matter if anybody notices. If you're high and significant, it absolutely matters if somebody notices the work you're doing. And that is not a good or bad thing. It is just the way you filter the world. It is the way you get energy. It is the way you get affirmation. It is the way you might feel loved. And it's not broken. It's not a bad thing just because, it's about how you take that talent and turn it into a strength. People high in significance want to make a difference in the world. They tend to lead some of the most impactful, amazing things that happen in this world because they want to leave a legacy and they want people to know that they have left a legacy. I am a middle child. I think of significance a lot as the middle child syndrome. Like you're always putting your hand up. Somebody with significance wants you to notice them. And if you do, they appreciate it more than probably anybody else will. So competition, also about being noticed, but for very different reasons. You can compete. I think of people high in competition can play golf. People high in competition can play golf. They can be competitive with others and competitive with themselves. It is more difficult for people with significance to play golf because nobody's watching you a lot of the time. Most of the time when you're playing golf, there's like one other person or up to 3 other people. So think of it that way or don't. Okay, last one, empathy and analytical. I'm trying to refresh my chat because it's not. Oh, there we go. And then I get a whole bunch. Okay. Empathy and analytical. My heart guides me, my head guides me, right? People exceptionally talented in analytical theme have the ability to think about all the factors that affect a situation. This is my favorite pairing for a romance, right? Whichever romance character has whichever side of this, one is going to lead with their heart. They're going to help people understand their feelings. They're going to know how they feel before the other. And then the head guides me analytical character might have to be, led along the way to understand how they really feel. Yes, it's break time. Breathe. We're about 10 minutes after the hour. We have 40 minutes left. So now is a good moment I'm going to set the timer for 60 seconds. We'll give you 2 minutes. I don't want we'll give you 2 minutes. Take a break, breathe, put some stuff in the chat. We'll look at that for a minute. Okay. If you have run to get a drink, we are going to start again. Hopefully you have stretched and you are away from your screen for a second. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, get out of the space between you and the screen. Okay. Now we're going to use all that oxygen we got in our little break and we're going to move forward. Regina's question, is this about creating a single character with conflicting characteristics or creating characters whose relationships dynamic has conflicting characteristics? Either, both. Yes, I can put the last slide back up. Sorry. When you're using these contrasting themes, it might be a single character who has contrast, who then can do some really complicated things. And truthfully, it's not like you're going to write in your book that I'm very analytical, but yet I'm driven to move forward on things. It will help you as the author understand what somebody who had achiever and intellection might do in a given situation. Or, like I said, with the romance, you could have empathy and analytical, but sometimes it's easier if you separate them and exaggerate them in different characters, and use other strengths to make your characters more complex. If you have empathy and strategic and woo, or empathy and strategic and relator, then your character might be plotting ways to help your analytical, intellection, achiever character get things done, right? Or understand themselves, or might strategize different ways to help teach them that they are feeling like they're falling in love, even if they don't know it themselves, right? Or pick up on the energy around something and point it out. So you can make contrasting themes part of an internal dialogue, or you can make contrasting themes part of a cast of characters or a team of characters. If you're writing epic fantasy and you need all of these different skill sets, like having a magic doer and a rogue and a mentor and all of these other characters, if you add a layer onto that about your rogue being a woo, right? So this is somebody who has to work in secrecy a lot and who steals a lot, but making your rogue very charismatic and outgoing, and that's not such a contrast. But I just can't think of the guy from Ant-Man being very good at sneaking. He's just such a talker. Okay, now we're going to take them into a situation and we're going to build some tools around these words. So we're going to ask and I'm asking you really this question. I hope that helps, Regina. Right. Book characters can't possibly be as complicated as real people, and we'll get to that. You're intending to label them. You want to label them and exaggerate them. Yes, you can absolutely have both empathy and analytical. Absolutely. I have seen command and harmony in somebody's top 5, and they are very different. And like I said, you tend to use them in different situations. So they might use command in one part of their life and harmony in the other part of life, or they may just gravitate toward one or the other. Laurel, that is a really interesting. So Laurel asks, how do mental illnesses like depression affect your talents? Do they change them altogether, or does it just put a strain on the talents? Remember, talents are just the way you think and act. So it would be really interesting to explore and find out in certain situations or reactions, or that kind of dichotomy of reaction. So let's just take a mild sense. Generally, you have your same strengths and you lean on them differently depending on the situation you're in or what's happening. For instance, I have positivity and I have communication and I have strategic. And woo is a big one for me. So woo is something I do whether I am happy or whether I'm going through a depression. Sometimes, like I think about postpartum depression, and this is more than you need to know about me, but I wanted to take this seriously. During postpartum depression, I used my woo to create smaller groups of people that I could spend time with, because it was my right hand dominant action that helped me feel normal. So it was hard to get out of bed, but my drive to talk to new people or to be around people and my activator created the ability to set up a group I thought I could handle talking to and be a part of that group. So I put in regular, and I'm not, discipline is super low on mine, but I put in regular check-ins with other people. I call people on the phone a lot, because when I'm not feeding my woo, it does feed even more depression. If I am offending my woo by not talking to other people and being around people, that's not just extrovert. It has to do with thoughts and needing to kind of connect with people. I can't be in the dark place and not connect with people. It just really, really feeds. So I used those same strengths to help pull me through. And positivity doesn't mean that you don't get depression, but it does mean that when I had a glimmer or a good day, I would lean into positivity further and I would write about it. And I've actually written myself out of quite a few ups and downs in life. So I would, I would write cathartic things that helped channel whatever I was going through into my work. And so it had a place to live, and I could use my positivity on finding a way out, and for those characters, or coming to an end that was satisfying, mending family relationships in my fiction, those kinds of things, dealing with upset and depression, betrayal and deception in my life through fiction, gives you a positive way out. Okay. Yes. I love this thought of exaggerating some of these talents could create alien nations and alien races. Absolutely. Think about Spock. They were all strategic thinking. It's like cut out all the others, and they only lived in strategic thinking. Fun alien races. Okay. What would a character exceptionally talented in command do in this situation? You're in prison. There's about to be a riot. Here, I know they're going into the stocks and stuff, or they're going into the prison, but there's about to be a riot. What would somebody high in command do? Somebody high in command might create a plan, lead, make sure that everybody in their team is left alone, align themselves or with the strongest person in the prison, or take down the strongest person in the prison to set themselves up as the command for that area. So somebody in command is going to take charge in this situation, no matter what the odds are. Somebody high in empathy. What would somebody high in empathy do in this situation? There's a couple of things. One is that they're going to really be able to read the mood. They might navigate with a lot of insight, right? It might be easy to read which people are more comfortable and which people are more uncomfortable, and create relationships and allies and alliances around that. Somebody high in empathy might also, because of just the human suffering that happens and the height of emotion that happens in a situation like this, where there's yelling and screaming and everybody's around, somebody high in empathy might get overloaded and shut down. They might just attach themselves to somebody in command and just walk in their shadow and not try to filter everything else. So there's a couple of different ways empathy would, but the whole point of that is the emotion of the situation is going to drive them to the behavior that alleviates that or feeds that, something that gives them energy around it, something that is easy path for them. Whether it is to just ignore and deny the empathy by shutting down those emotions, or whether it's weaving threads and negotiating through emotion to find the people that are most likely to be allies. So empathy is a fun one for this. Harmony. What would a character exceptionally talented in harmony do in this situation? This is not consensus. This is civil war. This is friend fighting friend, brother fighting brother. This is a situation in which harmony may, one, totally step back and not do anything. Like, you got two commands going at each other, I'm done. Like, I cannot create consensus. I'm going to wait till it's over and I'm going to be on the winner's side. The other thing they might do is, I have this image of Spider-Man who's like running in, but he's like, I don't want to fight anybody. Like, stop fighting. And he would like capture things that were flying around and try to protect people no matter what side they were on, really, because he doesn't want anybody to die because of a bad situation and a bad day and bad ideology. So sometimes consensus, somebody with harmony might try to just keep it as calm as possible in whatever way they can participate, or they may completely step out. But the reason that they're doing either one of those behaviors is because they are not going to fight. They're going to try to create consensus. They're going to try to be efficient emotionally and level the situation. Okay. What would somebody exceptionally talented and disciplined do in this situation if you were in prison? So that first scene that we see is all organized. You might create a routine. Somebody might have a workout routine that they use while they're in prison, right? So you create, breakfast is served at this time, and then I exercise, and then I plot to get out of here, and then I study the guards, and then I exercise again, or read a book, right? Creating that routine within the situation. Clearly, discipline, not one of Loki's, right? So what would somebody with adaptability, somebody who lives in the now, somebody who sees the now, right? And this moment, really might just wreck the place, because that's how I'm feeling right now. And I don't care that I'm not going to have a chair to sit in later. But they might also adapt over time and find creative ways to live with the situation, change the situation, or get out of the situation. Okay. Let's talk about balconies and basements. Um, okay. Balconies and basements. What are some of the positive perceptions others might have of your character's signature theme? So let's take one of the themes, focus. Focus is a theme we haven't talked about yet. So I'll put it in there. Focus is an executing theme that allows you to do just that, to kind of get lost in the work that you're doing, to really concentrate on the task ahead of you, right? So, what are some of the positive perceptions of focus? What might they be? Um, some of the positive perceptions of focus might include, thank you, I'm seeing things run in. Yes, I love the Uncle Iro in prison who just ran his discipline every day. Yes. Sorry, I got distracted. Focus. See, that's not one of my strengths. Focus is not one of them. But positively, yes, people with focus get things done. They concentrate. People with focus might write their book in a much shorter time than I do. So those are some of the positive themes you might see. And one of the ways to look at your character and see what are the positives of this, let's say I give my character focus, high in focus, romantic character, driven in their advertising firm. They're going to work. They're a high-powered executive with a lot of focus. Some of the things that, looking at some of the things they've achieved in their lives, or when they achieve something excellent, right? It's having that ability to really dedicate their time to something. So, what are the challenges with focus? What are some of the negative or difficult perceptions people might have around this character? You've seen it in all the Hallmark movies, right? She doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about people. He's focused on the outcomes. He ignores people. Somebody high in focus might walk right past you and not even know that you were there because they're so determined to get to the next thing, or or focused on what they're doing, that they don't hear you. When you're reading a book and you don't hear other people talking to you, like I did that. My poor husband has to deal with that a lot. That is the kind of focus we're talking about. It can be very negative. It can cause offense. It can cause relationships to be rifts. But then one of the ways to understand when you have a challenge for your character, and they do this really well in a lot of, like, let's take our Hallmark movie, our ad executive, very focused in their job, very focused in work, has achieved excellent things, got a huge promotion because they're so good at executing their job. They deliver things on time. Their team doesn't love them because they don't pay attention to the team. They drive the team and they don't pay attention to the team. But then they are walking along and somebody runs into them, because when you have focus as a high thing, people have to literally run into you sometimes before you'll notice them, right? So you have the meet cute and the character runs into this person and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." And that person's like, "I didn't see you there." And the other person says, "You don't see anyone." Right? And that surprise that the ad executive, who might be high in empathy, feels when somebody runs into them and says, what do you mean I don't see anyone? I see people, but not when I'm focused, right? So those are moments that you can start to see some of the challenges, we call them basements, of that strength. So translating it to your own world, when somebody reacts negatively to something or surprises you with their reaction, it's a moment to stop and think about, what is maybe a basement of one of these strengths? Positivity is another one to do with balconies and basements. Positivity, seeing the silver lining, always a good thing. People are attracted to positivity. They're attracted to somebody who has a bright outlook on life, who's going to help them navigate through a hard time. Positivity is not a strength when people feel like you are naive. Some people might react to your positivity. I actually have a very dear friend of mine who is also a boss of mine. She's not anymore, but we were talking about something and she literally said, "Okay, Pollyanna." And I just looked at her and I said, "I know you mean that negatively, but you also mean it positively." You're also grateful that I'm Pollyanna and that I can see the positive here, because otherwise you wouldn't get anything done. So, but truly, like, you can be labeled with positivity. You can, when people are going through a dark time and you say, it's going to be okay, or I really think there's another side of this. Or did you consider, you're talking to a child who just got hit on the playground. Did you consider how the other person feels? No, I'm not considering how the other person feels. And by the way, you're a jerk, right? You're supposed to be on my side. Those kinds of situations you can get into with these balconies and basements, particularly when you are in the talent phase and you haven't learned to strengthen that talent and use it in appropriate situations, when you're kind of using positivity as a raw umbrella over life and you haven't figured out when to focus it appropriately on certain situations. Yes. What's a negative for empathy? Positives for empathy are great, right? People high in emotion. Negative for empathy, that emotional overload. Walking into a situation or being at a concert where you get a really big high, but then you kind of crash. It's the highs and lows crash. The other negative is when somebody is like, how did you know that? How did you know that I was upset? Right? Did I show something? And they get really self-conscious because you have this kind of sixth sense about emotion. Boss high in empathy, working with a director who was not, who has other strengths, but was having a bad day and didn't think anybody at the office could tell. And he was really kind of freaked out when she showed empathy and asked, how are things going? I feel like this might be an off day for you or something's happening. And he was like, you freaked me out. How did you know that? Like, people get resistant to that. You can see it in relationships. Somebody who's high in empathy and very emotional might rush in to say, I love you. And somebody else is like, okay, it's like our first date. Like, I don't know how I feel yet. So you can rush in with emotional intelligence that people aren't ready for. So, and you can also shut down in high emotion feelings. Okay. And you can get trapped by your feelings. I love how everybody in the chat is helping everybody else in the chat. So that's great. We have 18 minutes left. So we're going to use them really quickly. I'm going to go through this. I took some of our favorite characters. This is our character sheet. If you have a table that you want to create, I don't have a character sheet to hand out to you. So I would like you to try to replicate this, either with your writing utensil and your paper, which I had you get at the very beginning of this. There was method to my madness. Your writing utensil and your paper, a notebook, a journal somewhere, if you wanted to write these topics out. And then, or you can create a table really quickly in a Word document. That's all I did. Excel or Word, just put a table in. We're going to go through character name, their strength, and what domain they might be in, so we remember how to use the strength in a team or with each other. Then we're going to do love, crazy, envy. So what do they love? What drives them crazy? What do they wish they had? What do they envy? This is a fun game to play with our talents. And then you get the best of me when, and you get the worst of me when. And we're going to think about when they are at their very best and most productive and most emotionally sound, and when you get the worst of them. When are they reactive? When are they surprised? When are they taken aback? When are they going to shut down or be overwhelmed or act aggressively, right? When do you get the worst of my behavior? And when do you get the best of my behavior? And this is so that as you're writing this character, when you want them to be on their best behavior and when you want them to be really challenged. So you can duplicate this. Our next slide is this empty one, so I'll show you that too. But let's take Loki. Let's take Loki through this character sheet. Loki's strength, we're going to start with adaptability. We're going to take at least 3 strengths when we do it ourselves, but for this one, we're going to take adaptability. Loki, it's a relationship building task. He loves change. He hates feeling trapped. It makes him crazy to feel trapped. And he envies command. He envies power. He's always in the now, but he envies that ability to lead. You get the best of Loki when he has freedom to act, when I have freedom to act and face new challenges. Not everybody writes their characters like this. I like to write my characters in first person as if I'm talking to them. So Loki would tell me when I have freedom to act and I can face new challenges, you get the best of me. And you get the worst of me when I'm cornered or ignored. So if you corner me and ignore me, you'll get the worst of me. Now, if you think Loki's best attribute is his ability to get out of those situations, then you might switch these two. But for me, I think of him as being very naughty when you corner him and trap him. He stops worrying about other people and he starts just worrying about himself. Thank you for the screenshot. Significance. Loki's also high in significance, right? We're going to give him multiple talents. It's an influencing talent. It's what helps him lead when he has the opportunity to do that. It's what helps him enjoy being a prince. He loves the spotlight. He despises consensus and harmony. And he envies those who are more thoughtful and analytical about a situation. He's still feeling that adaptability, right? Living in the chaos. With significance, he could envy the same thing. When you talk about envy, he could envy. I wanted to give him a few envies so that if I were writing a Loki character, I would want them to have a couple of things that make them burn a little green so that I could play with that in my conflict. You get the best of me when you recognize my superiority. Significance in Loki, you get the best of me when you recognize my superiority. You get the worst of me when you overlook my role in your success. So don't sideline me or I will bite you, right? That's pretty much Loki's MO. When he's sidelined, he comes back to bite you. Let's take Thor, kind of the other princeling, right? Let's take Thor. High in discipline, which is different than adaptability, right? Thrives on that routine. He loves training for battle. Chaos must be put in order. It makes him crazy for there to be a lot of chaos. He envies positivity. The reason he envies positivity, you would think he's positive. He's positive when things are going his way, which is not hard. But when things don't go his way, he envies that positivity. It's not a natural space for him to be in. There's order and routine. And so you get the best of me when there's a routine, when there's order, when there's a clear path ahead of me, then I'm great. You get the worst of me when I am out of my element or defeated. When I am banished, I don't really know what to do, right? He goes back and he tries to fight and he thinks it's not going to be a big deal. But when he actually realizes that he has been banished, he so easily believes that his mother doesn't care about him. He so easily believes that he's never going to get back to Asgard because his discipline is all out of whack and he doesn't know how to order his universe when he's not in charge. Which brings us to command. It's an influencing talent. He loves a strong team. Poor leadership makes him crazy. He envies harmony. He would like a consensus to have everybody on his side. You get the best of him when he's in charge. And you get the worst of him when someone incompetent is in charge. So think about his friction with Tony Stark. His friction with Tony Stark comes from partly the fact that Tony is a terrible leader. Tony should never be in charge of anything but himself. He's a terrible CEO. He's too intellectual. He's too into intellection and ideation and futuristic to be in charge of routine and managing other people. And we talk about ego. I think it's more than just his ego that makes him a bad leader. He's not good at making decisions when it comes to the welfare of a group of people. And yet he does all of these amazing selfless things. So a complicated character, but if Tony is an incompetent leader, he's not incompetent as a person. He's a super competent, brilliant person. But when you have an incompetent leader in charge, it's going to cause friction with somebody who's a competent leader, who knows how to pull a team together, who knows how to run them into battle, and who knows how to win for everybody. So I know it's simplistic. I told you we're exaggerating the label. We're exaggerating the label here, but hopefully it will help you. Okay. In 6 minutes, you have 6 minutes to fill this out on your own. Hopefully you've got it in your screen or you can write it down somewhere. We're going to take the next 6 minutes and we're going to have you fill it out. You can turn off your mic and put one of your characters through here if you want to. Otherwise, those of you who want to stay, we're going to create a couple of characters and we're going to take them through this exercise. So just probably 2 strengths in the next few minutes, and we'll use the chat to do that. Here are your words. So if you want to take your own character through this, go ahead and turn off your mic, pull up your thing or turn us down, and pick 1 or 2 of the strengths that you want to put your character through and answer these questions for them. What do they love? What makes them crazy? What do they envy? When do you get the best of them? When do you get the worst of them? Okay. In the chat, yes. In the chat, let's go ahead and create a character. I did Pollyanna her insult. Okay. Yes, you can take a screenshot. And I meant to tell you also at the beginning, I will be posting this on a website called Just Keep Writing. It's a podcast, and they have a website with a tool. It's on the last slide. If you go to Just Keep Writing, writing tools, they will have this probably in the next week. It won't be up there right away, but it will be up there and you'll be able to find it. Hopefully you'll be able to find it here for the next month. But after this, you'll have links. There's video links to several on the slide with this doesn't mean what you think it means. There's video links, so you'll be able to use those too. Okay, anybody got a character name that they want to go with? Male, female? And of course, we're lagging a little. Yes, the empty table. Okay, let's take Pollyanna. Let's take Pollyanna and we're going to name our character Anna. We're going to give her positivity. And she loves what? What is Anna with her positivity, which is relationship building talent? What does she love to do? Maybe she loves baking. She loves sunrises, right? She loves when things are happy. So she loves being in a bright, happy kitchen. It makes her crazy when people are negative around her. So when her boss yells at her for stuff that isn't her fault. So she loves kind of positivity. Maybe she loves, if we're going as a strength, maybe she loves futuristic things, right? So what does she envy? She envies ideation, right? She loves to create. She loves being strategic. She envies ideation because she wishes she could come up with more and more ideas for baking, and she always seems to have to finish one before she can come up with the next one. You get the best of her when she can express her positivity, when she can express a positive outlook or express the silver lining or help somebody. You get the best of me when I can help somebody be lifted. You get the worst of me when all hope seems lost, even if it's just for a short time. The shutting down, when there's a lot of negativity around for a short period of time, you're going to get the worst. Because somebody high on positivity who's having a bad day affects everybody around them. It is a relationship building strength. So if you're high on positivity, it's not unusual for people to say, hey, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm just not smiling today. Is that okay? Like my dog died. Is that okay that I can feel this way? Because they're so used to you being positive that when you're not, it can throw people around you off. So you get the worst of me when something really tragic happens and I'm processing. While I'm processing and trying to find the silver lining, if I can't see it, you get the worst of me as Anna. Okay, maybe we take Anna is going to also have high belief. So Anna also has high belief, which is an executing talent. She's passionate. She bakes for a cause. She bakes for Meals on Wheels. She loves serving other people. She goes crazy when people act without integrity. So when people are duplicitous. Thank you. And she envies, with belief, she envies those who can dedicate their whole life to something that they love, or maybe nuns, like something that can really just follow your passion, or she envies the tranquility of an oasis or something, so that you could really focus on what you're passionate about. You get the best of her when she can act within her convictions. So Anna is positive. You're going to get the best of her when she is fully aligned with what she's passionate about, and she's baking for Meals on Wheels. She's going to be the happiest. She's going to know she has an impact, and she's going to feel good about the work she's doing. You get the worst of her when she's in a dilemma, when her belief runs up against something she can't move. For instance, a boss who is stealing. She has convictions about right and wrong. She's in a position where she's not in power, and she has to face this integrity fight. Coming to terms with that in those moments of facing the duplicity, she's going to react to that. Okay, I hope that helps. Yes, I'm going to put the website in the chat, probably right after. Okay, that is show and tell. Does anybody have, well, I'm not going to go to show and tell. You can share in the chat if you have a character that you built that you really love. Go ahead and share in the chat, just because we don't have voice chat and it's not going to be as immediate. I've tried to answer questions along the way. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat in the last couple of minutes. Characters, this is the theme of today. Characters are exaggeration. Human beings are complex. And like I said, by understanding yourself and why you might filter emotions and how you might react to situations, it can help you be better at figuring out why you're villain. Oh, belief is so good in a villain. Why your villain is the way they are. Why your hero is or why your love interest is the way they are. Why a conflict might devastate one character and bring out the best in another character, right? It's not just about, I need them to succeed and I need them to fail, but why? Why would this destroy me? And why would it make you better? Take their strengths, their talents, their themes, and take them up a notch or 12, right? Captain America is a fantastic example of exaggeration. They exaggerated his weakness and they exaggerated his strength. And while he was weak, his character was exaggerated. He jumped on, in the first movie, he jumps on a grenade, right? Even though he's physically weak, his character's super strong, right? His conviction and his belief and all of those things are super strong. Then they make his body super strong. But what happens to his conviction that he's doing the right thing? They basically put him on show, and he doesn't know how to follow orders and do what he believes in, which is fight the fight. So he dances for months on end in a show and offends his belief that he should be doing something more important because he's trying to be a good soldier. And his character actually diminishes a little bit and gets hidden behind the physical strength. And then when he needs to act, he brings the two together. When somebody is in danger, when something needs to get done, he jumps in, both feet, driven by his belief that he needs to do something. He needs to protect the people that he's sworn to protect, that he needs to fight the evil that they are all trying to fight. And he jumps in with both feet and moves, and we completely believe that he has come to himself because we saw him as that person at the beginning. And we completely believe that he has come to himself at the end and brought both his character strengths and his physical strengths together. And that is part of the triumph of his exaggeration. Okay, here are your resources. I'm going to, oh man, I will copy this. Just Keep Writing, Writer's Toolbox. It's .org, justkeepwriting.org. You can find the books here. You can find your 34 strengths. I think somebody already put a link in about what are your strengths. And there are videos on Google. If you put Gallup strengths input, and then you go to the video tab, you'll find 1-minute explanation videos and other things. So it's really easy. I pulled a lot of this imagery right off of the internet because I wanted you to see that you could pull these little cards and other things off the internet so that you could put them together in a character. If you're a more visual person, you could put up a woo tab and an analytical tab. So that is all we have today. Good luck creating dynamic characters with great motivations behind the things that they do and their reactions. If I can be of any help, let me know. You can chat with me here or send me a message on Discord. So thank you, everyone.